Hello, welcome back to Mining Network. I'm joined with James Withall, the CEO of Rupert Resources. This is a special interview today. This will probably be one of the last interviews James does with his Rupert Resources hat on. James joined 7 years ago as an award-winning fund manager from Baker Steel, and in those 7 years has discovered one of the, if not the most important gold discovery in Europe in recent times. So, James, absolute pleasure to be sitting with you for, like I said, maybe the last time as with the Rupert hat on. What a journey, mate. What an absolute journey.
No, thanks, Richard. Thanks for the intro. It has been incredible, really. I went and stood in front of my team up in Finland to give them the news the day of the press release, and it was amazing to see where the company has come from in that time. Yeah. There's 40 odd people there in this great core facility, and the guys really pushing hard to keep on moving the project forward. And I think it's been a combined effort of so many people over the last few years, and obviously support from my family to achieve that. So it's been great.
Good. Yeah, I think it's funny as well, because I think in a way what you did when you obviously, I think some people know the story of obviously you were approached when you were at Baker Steel, and they had the part of Ara mine, which is an old sort of care and maintenance project, and you looked at that and thought, oh, I don't really want to just work on the same old story of trying to rebuild a mine. And you really pivoted this whole strategy to Greenfields, which, I mean, just the way I look at this at the moment, obviously, there was that pivotal moment of switching out to the Greenfields and discovering Ikkari, 4 million ounce, 2.5 gram deposit, absolute beast. But it's also the way that you went about the exploration, which I'm starting to notice a lot of other groups in, say, Canada or even in Finland now are starting to copy or emulate the base of till and the anomalous, and using that geological mindset of, if it doesn't look like it's a good enough anomaly that's going to produce something of scale, you walk away from it. And I think that's all been really pioneered from the Rupert methodology that you've brought in.
I think it's that. I think the big thing that drove me from coming across from fund management and through my entire career in mining before that, is that things have got to be relevant, and you've got to have some scale, and it's all about the quality. And we talked about that through many interviews, and just having that element, because it's got to be. There's no point exploring for something, and don't say this to belittle it, but finding gold in a gold belt isn't necessarily that hard. But finding truly economic discoveries that could be developed, and that's the same for other elements as well, nickel, copper projects. There's lots of small occurrences of all these elements out there, but reality is they've got to have scale, they've got to have the grade, they've got to have all those other elements, environmental elements, it's social elements, the area that you're discovering, can it take it forward to be a project. So you've got to bring those things. What we did was try and bring all that in at the beginning in exploration, and say, if you could, shape the discovery you're trying to make, or put those characteristics, what are you trying to do, and think about all those things really early on. But obviously, when it comes down to finding deposits, you've got to find something good enough and scale, and that requires you to really sort of step back and really focus on the science. And I think, hopefully my geologists that worked for me over the last 7 years would agree, that give them that opportunity really just to focus on using their knowledge, everything that they were taught, and really be led by the science, but in a systematic, risk-adjusted way. So it's very interesting.
Well, I think I don't know, is it Rick Raw or Eric Sprott? They always say it's just as hard to build a big mine, and there's as many complications as there is a small one. So why would you bother building a small one? But obviously, it's an interesting time, and obviously you've decided to take the step back now, and obviously I want to go into that. But obviously you are now at this point where you've made the discovery, you've proven out the resource, it's measured and indicated, essentially ready to be built, really, isn't it? Once the economics are done. In your mind, why was this the right time for you to now step away?
Look, I think I joined because when I joined, one of the big ones you mentioned, they had a part of our mine where I was half interested, but I joined because I saw the geological potential from looking at so many other investments and working on the ground in so many in other parts of the world. And so what really attracted me was that geological potential. I guess the hard thing to decide for me is almost stepping away, because I still see so much more geological potential in the belt. New discoveries like Ikkari don't come across, they're not like buses. You can't just get another one to jump on another one. But I still see there's huge potential geologically. But that's not the drive, and so that's, there's no driver that I think the belt has been explored, because that, I think this is just the start of that. The main driver for me is as a long-term investor in the sector, I've sat had management teams sit in front of me so many times. They make a discovery, they go into the development phase, but they're sort of holding on too long, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, my skill base has been is fund management, allocation of capital early on, quite high risk stage, which exploration suits really well. But now you need to bring in those skills, and one of the biggest frustrations for investors is that is sometimes that you end up staying involved in the company, but really the management team then doesn't have those skills, and they're learning on the job, which, as a long-term investor and investor in Rupert, I shouldn't be paying. Investors shouldn't really be paying people to learn on the job in an industry where there's plenty of people that already know how to do these things and can do it incredibly well. So, I wrote in the press release about having the right people in the right positions at the right time. I feel that as a significant investor in the company, it's right to have someone with those skills come in and lead the team and provide that leadership, which is so important when you're trying to develop a business. You've got to give your staff, that reassurance that how to take this forward and how to build a project.
Well, I guess to an extent, it's obviously you're sitting across from another investor, and you're talking to them about building a mine, and obviously that wouldn't really make a lot of sense coming from you. I guess is the main gist, isn't it? You need someone who's obviously done this before to come in and do that. So what was you involved in the decision around picking Graham, or was that a board decision? And I wouldn't mind, if off the top of your head, if you know a bit about his background, because I'm sure Rupert shareholders are fascinated and interested to know who you're handing the keys over to and why you decided to pick him.
Yeah, look, it was really, I guess the points I raised there, that's why I raised effectively internally, and I was like, we really need to, we've had so much success, in the company, and to continue that success, I felt and discussed it with board members that this is the right thing to do, had someone said that's quite self-aware, and I said, well, perhaps self-awareness is a good thing. So I have been involved in that process. We weren't in any particular rush to do it, because obviously we're still at the earlier stages of development. But it was just trying to explore and see who was available and who was potentially interested. And I think in Graham we've come across an incredibly good candidate for this position. Why do I like him? Personally, I think he's a very good person, which is an important element of it. He seems very trustworthy, and he's got a lot of experience throughout his career in lots of different parts. So he's from Western Australia, but he's also worked internationally quite significantly through West Africa, more recently in Brazil, and he's worked on, good projects, like really, really good projects, but also really tough projects. And one of the things that, that's one of the things I like about the fact that he's not always been closeted in a bigger organisation, and he's been put in at the deep end and really seen some of the significant challenges that you have in this industry, and those are the elements that you really need to have in this position going forward.
With obviously you're talking about he's worked on some really tough projects, and obviously that experience is vital, but the way Ikkari's shaping up, it doesn't look like a particularly tough project to build in a sense.
Well, that's good. He can enjoy. Yeah, hopefully
do it in his sleep.
No, but that's important. I learned a big lesson early on in my career. I was sent to a mine as a mine geologist, really early on in Western Australia, and I went there and you interrogated the project, did the reconciliations, and ultimately I went to the CEO of that company and said, oh, this isn't going to work ultimately, and there's got some serious problems. So, but having had that experience, that was kind of what led me to be more interested in the investment side and get into it. But with those things, and he's had those experiences in his career, is you really recognise a good project, and Ikkari is an amazing project. It's such a great opportunity, and I think that's, having spoken to him, that's what he's excited about it. Take all those lessons, then apply all that knowledge and to a really good project, and make, what are we trying to develop at Ikkari? We're trying to generate, best-in-class, proper future-fit, modern mine. It's in northern Finland, great jurisdiction, great infrastructure. Let's try and build the most optimal project there possible, and understand, take all those nuggets of information that you've got of your career and apply them and say, okay, well, let's make sure this is not just a good project, but a really, really great project that can provide incredible returns, both for everyone involved, not just investors, all the stakeholders, local communities. It's just one of those assets that really stands out.
Obviously, just talking about how good of a project it is, you just released very recently, obviously, these MET results, right? And I think to the untrained eye, it's quite tough to look at MET results and really understand what they mean. But from what I could tell, I mean, 93 variable to 98.6%, was it? 98.4,
I think. Yeah.
I mean, these are phenomenal. Maybe just set the context of what that means for the deposit moving forward when you are thinking about the flow sheet and the process design.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about Ikkari is that it's the best gold ore body I've seen in my career, ultimately, in terms of just its morphology, its shape, lends itself to the way it's mined. The grade is very consistent. You have a huge amount of free gold in the system, as well as some of the finer gold. But all those elements, when we first did the first metallurgical test work, I remember sending the samples to one of the labs, and it was for them it was like sample number 14,000, and the guys sort of emailed back and said these are like some of the best we've ever seen in 14,000 metallurgical test works we've done. So we're like, okay, that's not a bad start. Those results that we just put out, it lends itself to a very simple process flow sheet. In the PEA we were using a flotation stage. We're probably not going to see that going forward. It's just going to be a normal off-the-shelf gravity plant with a leach circuit on the back. And again, that's great. De-risks that element of the process plant. De-risks an operational side. You need less people. The skill base, the knowledge base is different. I think it goes back to that thing. I mean, the first, you do your metallurgical test work results on your first few holes. We're now 4 years on from the discovery and continuing to run our whatever 5th or 6th round of metallurgical test work, and these continues to show stunning recoveries. But also there's a chart in there about across the grade range, so all the way from like 0.8 grams to like 9 grams you get these phenomenal recoveries, and sometimes in gold deposits at low end of the grade you can really struggle on recovery, whereas we don't have that at Ikkari. So good.
Okay. And what about just looking even further afield? So, or further forward. Obviously, I think you're taking a step back around. Was it the 14th of October?
Yeah, Graham will step into my role on the 14th of October.
Okay. Yeah. And what are you expecting? Obviously, I'm sure you're going to be following the story religiously after that point. But what are you expecting to see in the next 12 months from when Graham takes over? Obviously, you've got the PFS and. Just a bit more flavour as to what investors should be.
So I think there's a few things. We put them in the press release. Obviously, we put out those MET results. They feed into the PFS. The PFS study is ongoing right now. We're still waiting on some more results on some of the hydro stuff and some of the waste test work we're doing. So when that comes in, then we'll be able to start finalising that. But that's that element, which is sort of an engineering snapshot of how the project looks. We're very much focused on all the permitting side at the moment. The EIA report, which is a significant step in the project's life, is due in probably in the middle of next year. And that, in Finland, just people understand, is that's your primary document really for the next, probably for the next 10 or 15 years of this project. You're presenting to the government and the permitting authorities all the environmental aspects of how this project will look from the day it starts, when even from the time we've already started doing the exploration, all the way through to what it would look like when it's closed. So it's a whole cradle to grave study environmentally of its impact. So that's the main body of work that we're really focused on. The engineering that we're doing for the PFS is all feeding into that. And so that will go as a report in the middle of next year, and that then gets reviewed by the government over a period of 4 months, and they give us feedback. Do we need to do some other studies? But I'd say that's something Graham will be highly involved in and bring that in. And then as soon as the engineering just carries on, we've already started DFS test work, metallurgical test work, and all the drilling for the geotechnical things for the pit. That's all been going on. That was done towards the end of last year, so we've been gathering all that geotechnical information. So I guess the people often hang a lot on this. The PFS comes out, you should really focus on. I would say it's just a step in the road. The project, is very robust. The DFS will then really drill down as how, engineer that to how it will look actually when it's developed, and that will go into the permitting application to the government. So really goes back to why is Graham starting now, is because you need that important. One of the biggest flaws in this industry is where you have people that are just been on the development side and not in operations roles, and they do all the study work and then hand it over to the operations guys on day one, and they go, oh, well, that was stupid. Why have you done that? That didn't make any sense. So Graham's operational experience will allow, hopefully, to make sure that those things get picked up through this important study, the permitting and engineering phases.
Good. All right. That's really good news. What I'd like to get my head around, obviously you're sitting at around an 800 million Canadian market cap at the moment. And I guess Greenfield aside and the satellite targets and the potential of the belt, but just on Ikkari, obviously it's a very good valuation for a junior mining company that's not in production yet. I guess how can investors look at this, not excluding additional discoveries, Ikkari on its own, where's the value to be had with Ikkari in terms of as this progresses through the risks?
Yeah.
Did the value of the ounces in the ground start to change,
Absolutely.
How would you look at this asset, say when it's in production? What would the potential value of that be, say in another company like a Barrick or an Agnico or something like that? How would you determine the value of a project like this?
Yeah, so I guess right now, the market capitalization in Canadian dollars is about 800-ish, but obviously US dollars maybe 650-ish, something like that. But even the PEA that we did 2 years ago at 1650 gold had an NPV of 1.6 billion. So obviously when you bring that up to today's gold prices, it's significantly higher, and obviously the PFS will use probably a significantly higher base gold price in it as well. We will have seen some cost inflation. I think people are aware of that in the industry, but it should still be a very robust project. So Rupert trades at quite a discount to that valuation.
Yeah.
So I think effectively you end up paying maybe $150 an ounce or something for a Rupert or produced ounce of Rupert today. When it gets into production, the sort of margins that the project could develop, well, those valuations could easily be up to $400 or $500 an ounce. So whilst the market cap is large, that's ultimately because the project is a high quality, high margin project. So, but we're still trading at a fraction of that value as it would be in production. So obviously there's value creation to be had in there, and that's making all the right decisions over the next few years to bring it forward, and also looking at husbanding the share capital and the balance sheet of the business. I think we've done a very good job of that so far.
Yeah.
We just raised another $35 million, and as said to investors earlier on in the year, if the price wasn't great, we wouldn't do a huge raise. We haven't done a huge raise. The price wasn't great, but I think the market is going to hopefully understand the business again better over the next few months with the studies, and hopefully future capital raisings can manage that dilution, and obviously you can manage that dilution if we do the engineering well, we can use significant debt finance to develop the project. So that's how you continue to unlock value on the ounces that we've already discovered. And then you do have to think about the Greenfield side.
Yeah, I was actually just about to ask
which is
about
so
that.
important for the company because we have made the Hainer South discoveries. There's a number of satellites around, and you'd have seen in this news release that the guys have 7 really interesting targets they want to go for this winter, both on the gold side, but actually on the base metal side as well. So that's another element. But that's the buses comment. You don't know when that next one's going to come along.
Yeah.
But do the work in the right manner, and you increase your chances of that.
Yeah, I think that was sort of where I was going to sort of ask actually, was obviously if you believe that the Ikkari deposit is undervalued with the ounces in the ground at the moment as it is, then the Greenfield really isn't being valued whatsoever. You could argue.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk a little bit about this winter drill campaign, because you just mentioned that you've got 7 targets there. Yeah. How much of that is existing satellites like Hainer South and Hainer Central? How much of that is new base of till anomalies that perhaps aren't part of these same satellites?
I think it's interesting. Someone asked me the other day about this, and I was like, that it was like everyone's forgotten that we had part of our, and we've forgotten about Hainer Central, or even forgotten about Hainer South, because everyone just gets so focused on Ikkari. And reality is the PFS study that comes out will just be on Ikkari.
Yeah.
But there's already an inventory of potential future economic ounces, subject to engineering, that exists in the company. So this drilling campaign this winter will be to focus on probably 30 or 40% of it is on things that we already have seen. We want to follow up those Hainer South drill results. We put out a couple more just recently. It's a really interesting project. It's what I call much more of a typical gold deposit. It's narrower, and for that it requires more drilling to drill it up. Ikkari is exceptional because you don't get 190 metres at 2.6 grams all the time, unfortunately. Hainer South has phenomenal grades at times, over 1,000 grams, but they're only over like a metre or two, which in itself is harder to trace. But we'll do some more work on that. We're spending a lot of time geologically on that, building structural models. So you've got the things around Ikkari and also along the Reala trend, which we talk about, which remains incredibly untested. We need to do some more geophysics there, and before we really commit to doing some more drilling along there. But I think using that, so that's sort of one element. But then there's really some interesting new targets that we've generated out of doing more geophysics over the last winter, this last winter, and some base of till targets that we have had in inventory, but we just haven't gone to do those. So we're going to follow up on some of those this winter. So I think that sets it up pretty well. What's interesting about the land package that we took on, and even from the beginning, when we were assessing it, and when I was assessing it back in 2016, 2017, that big land package that we have that goes from Partavara in the east all the way to Ikkari in the west, I mean, it's about 25 k's, 30 k's long. Geologically, the western side, and has proven itself up, is very prospective for gold. Along this domain boundary where Ikkari occurs. But the eastern portion is all in this ultramafic area. It's you've got the Kavitsa base metals low grade base metal project, Boledens, but it's low grade but vast. So 9 k's to the east, you've got the Sakati discovery for Anglo-American, which they're steadily moving forward, which is has to be one of the most phenomenal undeveloped base metals assets in the world. It's a bit complex because how you develop it, but at the same time it is an incredible ore body. Yeah. But I've had the team spend more time on that. We've had quite a lot of interest in what we've been doing there. But this winter, empowered the team, so you need to go and test a few of your ideas on that, and from that, maybe. Yeah, we'll see what comes from. But I've, going back to, you asked me a question about the whole philosophy and what we did at Rupert at the beginning. We were never specific about finding a gold deposit. We were specific about finding something of scale on an NSR basis that could be developed, that was relevant. And that methodology, that it's been driven into the guys, and it is still happening. As a shareholder, I'm super excited about what happens this winter on there. That's because I've always got a love of exploration and love the element of the business, because it's ultimately where you can generate huge amounts of value and multiple returns. We'll see what happens from that program.
Good. All right. Well, last question. What does James Withall do now? What's his next step?
Spend more time with my family. There's no doubt about that. I think one of the elements of this job is that I think if you're going to do, a philosophical overview, that 5 to 7 years is not a bad length of time to be a CEO, and you see it in bigger organisations certainly outside of the gold sector, where you see rotation and succession coming through. That's important, because you want to give it, not 100%, you're giving 120, 130% all the time to drive that success. So I think, I look forward to a bit of downtime for a while, and then we'll see what happens. I love the sector. Obviously invest in Rupert and probably invest in other things again. So we'll be nice to be able to actually look at the sector as a whole again, rather than just be focused on Rupert. We'll see.
Well, I'm sure on behalf of most, if not all, shareholders, I'm sure they don't mind me saying thank you very much for the last 7 years that and all the hard work you have put into Rupert. I mean, in terms of where you started from to where it is now, the amount of value that you've created for shareholders is just immense. And it's nice that you're giving over the keys at a time where there's no blemishes or scratches on the car. And but no, it's been an amazing journey to watch, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Okay, well, thank you, and I just thank you for all the shareholders and everyone that's supported Rupert through this process. It's been it has been incredible 7 years, and enjoyed it immensely, and all the people that I've worked with along the way. It's been incredibly rewarding. Many have become good friends, and it's certainly been an experience or an episode in my life that will be forever dear to me. So it's been great.
Perfect. James, thank you.
Thank you.